was Mahatma Gandhi. You've probably seen his face. A kind-looking man, with glasses and a simple white cloth wrapped around him. But what did he actually do? And, why is he still so important all these years later? He wasn't a king or a president with a massive army. He was just one man, but he managed to challenge the most powerful empire in the world. His story is about fighting for what's right, but doing it in a way that no one expected. It's a story of incredible strength, but a strength that came from peace, not from weapons. He showed everyone that you don't need to be loud and aggressive to make a massive difference. Let's go back to the beginning. He was born Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi on the 2nd of October, 1869. This was in a town called Porbandar in Gujarat, which is on the west coast of India. His family were quite well off. His dad was a local politician, so you could say he grew up around the world of power and rules. But at that time, India wasn't its own country. It was part of the British Empire, ruled from thousands of miles away in London. This meant that Indian people didn't have the same rights or opportunities as the British people who lived there. It was a system that was deeply unfair, and Gandhi saw it all around him as he was growing up. As a young man, he went to London to study law. Imagine that, leaving your home and traveling all that way to a completely different culture. He tried to fit in, even taking dancing lessons. But it was his next move that really changed him. He took a job in South Africa, which was also under British control. It was there that he really came face to face with shocking racism. He was thrown off a train just because he wasn't white, even though he had a first-class ticket. This wasn't just a one-off incident. It was how the system worked. He saw how badly Indian and black people were treated every single day. These experiences in South Africa were a massive turning point. It was here that the young, quiet lawyer started to become a leader. He decided he couldn't just accept this injustice. He had to do something about it. But how do you fight against a government that has all the power, all the soldiers, and all the guns? This is where Gandhi started to develop his own unique ideas. He knew that fighting violence with more violence would only lead to more pain and suffering. He had to find another way, a better way, to demand change and stand up for his people. So, what was this new way of fighting back? Gandhi called it satyagraha. It's a word from an ancient Indian language, Sanskrit, and it roughly means truth force or soul force. The idea was simple but incredibly powerful. You resist unfair laws, but you do it peacefully. You don't fight back with your fists or with weapons. Instead, you show the authorities that their laws are wrong by refusing to obey them. You accept the punishment, whether it's being arrested or even being beaten, without retaliating. It was a way of showing moral strength, not physical strength. This wasn't about being weak or passive. It was the opposite. It took immense bravery to stand your ground when faced with violence and not hit back. Gandhi believed that this non-violent resistance would do two things. First, it would show the world how unjust the authorities were. People would see peaceful protesters being treated badly, and it would make them question the system. Second, he hoped it would change the hearts and minds of the oppressors themselves. By showing them dignity and love instead of hate, he believed you could make them see the error of their ways. It was a radical idea. He first put these ideas into practice in South Africa, organizing the Indian community to protest against discriminatory laws. They held marches. They refused to carry registration cards, and many of them, including Gandhi, were sent to prison. But it worked. Their struggle got attention, and some of the harshest laws were eventually changed. This experience taught Gandhi that non-violent civil disobedience could be a powerful tool for change. He had found his method. After more than 20 years in South Africa, he decided it was time to take this fight home to India. When he returned to India in 1915, he was already well known. People started calling him Mahatma, which means great soul. It was a sign of huge respect. He spent his first year traveling all across India, really getting to know the country and its people. He saw the terrible poverty and the everyday struggles of ordinary Indians under British rule. He decided to live a simpler life, giving up his smart suits for the simple white cloth, known as a dhoti, that poor Indians wore. This was his way of showing that he was one of them, ready to lead the fight for their freedom. Gandhi's leadership really took center stage in India's long struggle for independence. He knew that to challenge the British, he had to get millions of ordinary people involved. One of his most famous campaigns was the Salt March in 1930. At the time, the British had a law that said Indians couldn't produce or sell their own salt. They had to buy it from the British government, which also put a heavy tax on it. This hit the poorest people the hardest, as salt is something everyone needs. It was a perfect example of an unfair law that affected everyone. So, Gandhi decided to challenge it. He started walking from his home, heading for the sea, which was about 240 miles away. He was 61 years old at the time. At first, only a small group went with him, but as they walked through villages, more and more people joined. The march became a huge news story, not just in India but all around the world. After 24 days, he reached the coast. He walked down to the sea and picked up a lump of salty mud and boiled it to make salt. By doing this, he was breaking the law. It was a simple act, but it was hugely symbolic. This one act of defiance set off a massive wave of civil disobedience across the country. Millions of Indians started making their own salt, openly breaking the British law. The government reacted by arresting tens of thousands of people, including Gandhi himself. But they couldn't stop the movement. The Salt March showed the world that India was determined to be free, and it made the British look like bullies for arresting people over something as basic as salt. It was a masterclass in non-violent protest, putting huge moral pressure on the British Empire. Another powerful symbol for Gandhi was the spinning wheel. He encouraged all Indians to spin their own thread and weave their own cloth, instead of buying expensive textiles imported from Britain. This was about more than just clothes. It was a call for economic independence. It was a way for Indians to become self-sufficient and boycott British goods, hurting the empire's economy. The spinning wheel became a symbol of freedom and self-reliance, and it was even put on the flag of the Indian National Congress, the main political party fighting for independence. It was another simple, peaceful but incredibly effective idea. As India got closer to achieving independence, a new and very difficult problem emerged. It was the question of what would happen to the large Muslim minority in a country that was mostly Hindu. Some Muslim leaders, led by Muhammad Ali Jinnah, worried that their community would be treated unfairly in a Hindu-majority India. They started demanding a separate country for Muslims, which they would call Pakistan. This idea of dividing the country was something that deeply pained Gandhi. He had spent his life trying to unite people, not separate them. Gandhi fought hard to keep India together. He believed that Hindus and Muslims were brothers and had lived side by side for centuries. He traveled across the country, holding prayer meetings and pleading for unity. He felt that dividing the country would solve nothing and would only lead to terrible violence and bloodshed. He saw India as one nation, a place where people of all faiths could live together in peace. The thought of splitting it apart based on religion went against everything he stood for. It was his dream for a united, independent India. Despite Gandhi's efforts, the political pressure was just too great. The British, keen to leave India after the Second World War, finally agreed to the plan. In August 1947, they granted independence but also created the new nation of Pakistan. The country was split in two, a process known as partition. This led to one of the biggest and most violent migrations in human history. Millions of Muslims traveled to Pakistan, and millions of Hindus and Sikhs traveled to India. Terrible riots broke out, and it's estimated that up to 2 million people were killed. This was a heartbreaking time for Gandhi. His dream of a peaceful, united India was shattered. He was in Calcutta when independence was declared, not celebrating in the capital, Delhi. He was instead trying to stop the horrific violence between Hindus and Muslims. He went on a hunger strike, refusing to eat until the fighting stopped. His moral authority was so great that the leaders of the different communities came to him and pledged to end the violence. But the division of his beloved country was a deep wound, and the violence of partition was a tragedy that overshadowed the joy of independence. The violence of partition showed just how much hatred there was. Tragically, this hatred would ultimately lead to Gandhi's own death. On the 30th of January, 1948, just a few months after independence, he was on his way to a prayer meeting in Delhi. A Hindu extremist, who was angry at Gandhi for being too protective of Muslims and for agreeing to the creation of Pakistan, approached him and shot him dead. The man who had spent his whole life preaching non-violence was killed in an act of terrible violence. His death sent shockwaves across India and the entire world. But his ideas did not die with him. In fact, they spread far and wide, inspiring people all over the globe who were fighting their own battles for justice and equality. One of the most famous people he influenced was Martin Luther King Jr., the leader of the American Civil Rights Movement. Dr. King studied Gandhi's methods of nonviolent resistance and used them to fight against racial segregation in the United States. He led peaceful marches and boycotts, just like Gandhi had, showing that the philosophy of satyagraha could work in a completely different context. Another great leader who was inspired by Gandhi was Nelson Mandela in South Africa. Mandela spent 27 years in prison for fighting against the racist apartheid system. While his struggle also involved armed resistance, he always spoke of his deep admiration for Gandhi and his principles of forgiveness and reconciliation. When Mandela was finally released and became president, he worked to unite the country and avoid a civil war, following Gandhi's example of bringing people together. From the fields of India to the streets of America and the townships of South Africa, Gandhi's message echoed. So, why do we still remember the man in the white cloth today, on this day in 2026? It's because his message is timeless. He showed us that you don't need money, weapons, or an official title to change the world. He proved that one person's courage and commitment to peace and truth can challenge empires and inspire millions. In a world that is still full of conflict and injustice, his life is a powerful reminder that there is another way. A way of strength through peace, of courage through non-violence. That is the legacy of the great soul, Mahatma Gandhi.